Okay, we're at the top of the hour. Welcome, everyone. My name is Angela. I'm with Marone Bio Innovations and Marketing, and I'm pleased to welcome you to our row crop webinar on how to boost fungicide performance and improve row crop health with biologicals. Before we get started, I would just like to remind you that Marone Bio Innovations is a publicly traded company. So any information we share throughout this presentation is purely meant for education and how to use our products. If you're interested in investing in the company or purchasing stock, we encourage you to conduct your own due diligence. I'd like to go ahead and introduce our speakers that we have today. First is Brian Mueller. He is a product development manager in the Midwest and Great Lakes region for Marone Bio Innovations, and his experience in agriculture spans 34 years with work in a variety of crops and regions, from sugar beets and malting barley in Montana to citrus and fruit in Florida. He's also experienced with vegetable and row crops in the Midwest. Prior to joining Marone Bio Innovations in 2016, he held product development roles with Union Carbide, Roan Polek, BASF, and Crop Production Services. Brian has a Bachelor of Science from the University of Minnesota and a Master of Science in Entomology from South Dakota State University. So Brian, thank you so much for being on. I know you're going to share a wealth of information about how our products work as well as how they perform in the field.
Yes, thank you, Angela. Let's go ahead and add the next slide. Oh, you got.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and introduce all of them. Yep, go ahead. No worries. So our second speaker is our guest speaker today, Kevin Matthews, who is a owner of Matthews Family Farm in North Carolina. It's a fourth generation family farm in the Yadkin River Valley where he grows corn, soybeans, and wheat. He is also the president of Xtreme Ag and is a 10-time NCGA state winner and 4-time NCSGA state winner. So Kevin, thank you so much. I know you're very busy getting ready to gear up for the season, and we sincerely appreciate you being on today and talking about your firsthand experience with our products.
Looking forward to it.
And lastly, but not least, we have my colleague, Brad Paschen, who's the Regional Account Manager in the Midwest for Marone Bio Innovations. He resides in West Lafayette, Indiana. He's a certified crop advisor and has 30 years of experience in the agriculture industry. He spent 10 years in crop protection, 10 years in seed and bio and tech, and 10 years in the biological space. So he certainly understands row crops and how biologicals can benefit both organic and conventional farmers. He has had experience in sales, management, marketing, and national accounts with American Cinnamide, Monsanto, and Acadian. Brad joined MBI just right after I joined about 2 years ago. I always joke that we're the COVID crew. We joined right before COVID struck and has been doing an amazing job spreading the word about the benefits of our products throughout the Midwest and really showing how these products work. So Brad is going to have a wealth of information about how to actually use the products on your farm, as well as pictures, which of course speak 1,000 words. So Brad, thanks so much for being on today as well.
Thank you, Angela.
I'm just going to quickly run through our agenda and share a little bit about Marone Bio Innovations. So today, I always like to kind of guide you on the journey before we start the journey, right? So we'll talk a little bit about our company in case you're not familiar with it or don't know much about Marone Bio. Then I'm going to hand it off to my colleague, Brian, who is going to talk about Pacesetter and Emergent, two biologicals that we've been testing a lot and some growers have been using. He'll share some field data on the performance of those products. Then Kevin will take it away with his experience using the products on his farm. And then lastly, Brad will finish with how to use the products, the art of use, a lot of photos from the field. And then Brian will finish up with sharing some additional products that are coming down the pipeline for row crop growers. So first, for those that aren't familiar with Marone Bio Innovations, we were founded in 2006, and we went on the stock exchange in 2013, the NASDAQ. We're headquartered. We just relocated our headquarters to Raleigh, North Carolina, and we have research and development facilities in Davis, California. We are a global company. We have a subsidiary of ProFarm, which is based over in Finland. So we have a global team throughout Europe, the United States, and South America. In the United States, our manufacturing facilities are in Bangor, Michigan, and some highlights about our research and development capabilities. We have over 18,000 microorganisms and over 550 patents globally. Our CEO is Kevin Elash. One of the things we really like to focus on is the fact that we are first and foremost farmer focused. We do this through sustainable sourcing, innovative technology, and biological solutions. So as I mentioned, our aggressive screening, we have over 18,000 microorganisms, 550 issued patents, and our global field testing throughout the world, 3,000 trials thus far in 23 countries. And that's a 2020 number. We're just about to update our 2021 number, so that number is obviously growing. There are 3 areas of biological solutions that we focus in: crop protection, crop health, and crop nutrition. So first, crop protection. These products are primarily focused on protecting the plant from insects, diseases, and environmental damage. Our crop health products are focused on improving plant health, specifically better root development, improving plant vigor, and reducing plant stress. And I apologize, I should have minimized that before. And last, our crop nutrition products are really focused on increasing the plant's ability to take in nutrition. So improved uptake of water and nutrients and enhancing the soil microbiome. Excuse me. This is our product portfolio. I'm not going to go over it in depth. However, it just again is, we're going to be focusing on specific products today for row crop growers, but our products are, we have a growing portfolio of products. So everything from fungicide, bactericide, and disinfectants to products for plant health, managing disease, insecticides, reducing crop stress, plant health, nutritional seed treatments, which is a rapidly growing area for us, and a primary focus of our subsidiary ProFarm in Finland, as well as foliar fertilizers. You can find out more information about all of these products on our website. And now I'm going to hand it over to my colleague, Brian, who's going to go ahead and introduce you to Pacesetter. Brian?
Okay. Thank you, Angela. I appreciate it. So I'm going to try to be move along as quickly as I can. I really want to hear from Kevin and his experience, but our primary focus right now with Pacesetter is corn, soybeans, wheat, cotton, and rice. What we're looking at for the conventional grower is we're going to be using these products to improve our disease control over what your current fungicide program is doing, and then offering much more plant health, which eventually leads to greater yield. The ROIs have looked very good, and so I think this is certainly a product that you're going to want to consider on your farm. Moving, Angela, if you would move to the next slide, please. All right, so here are the crops that are all on the label. I want to make sure to our folks that are here from the southern states that cotton and peanuts are included in this. But again, as I said before, focus corn, soybeans, wheat will probably be the bulk of our focus for the short term, and then expanding into other crops long term. This is an OMRI listed product, so let's talk about what it is. So Pacesetter is an extract. It comes from the giant knotweed plant, Renutria. It offers something different than other fungicides. It has no direct effect on a pathogen. What it does is change the crop. It changes the host. Under normal circumstances, when a plant is attacked by disease, it will switch on mechanisms to defend itself. What we're doing with Pacesetter is turning those systems on before a plant is attacked or it experiences biotic stress. Now, this gives us an additional plant health, but it helps us also control diseases better. So move to the next slide, please, Angela. So what do we see? An increase in chlorophyll content. Another thing that happens when a plant is attacked by a microbe is that the plant will respond by increasing the cell wall thickness. And so we see a greater stalk strength or cell wall thickness in plants. And then it also produces a series of phytoalexins and phenolic compounds. So I want to go a little deeper into that one on the next slide. And I don't want to overwhelm, but you've heard maybe in some, if you're reading trade magazines, they talk about a salicylic or GemJasmatic pathway. We have a foot in both of these pathways. We can measure the response as an ISR, induced systemic resistance, or an SAR, which is systemic acquired resistance. They're a little bit different. They turn on different compounds. And what that usually means is once we've treated with Pacesetter, it'll take about 24 to 48 hours to ramp up these compounds that are going to help protect the plant from disease and have a plant health effect. It lasts about 21 days. In other crops, we will reapply maybe 7 to 14 days later. In row crops, we're really talking about 1 to 2 applications for the effect that we would like to see. I'll also mention Emergent. This is a new product for us that we acquired through our ProFarm colleagues in Europe. It also, we're going to be focusing corn, soybeans primarily initially, but this adds another layer of help to the program that we're talking about today, delivering a really nice ROI, but providing a lot more abiotic stress. Next slide. So we're going to use it foliarly. It can be used in many other different ways through the roots as well, or a seed treatment. Those are some things that we have offered. But again, improving nutrient uptake. It is compatible, I should mention, with the majority of things that we've tried it with as far as fertilizers and other fungicides. Next slide, please. So on the upper left-hand side, you'll see a little schematic of what the molecule looks like. We're using lignosulfonates and a proprietary system to embed macronutrients. I'm thinking potassium, particularly in this case, and also micronutrients and trace elements. They move quickly and easily into the plant. And what the graph shows is the percent of increased nutrient uptake. This is from several different locations, and it's based on what we see from tissue samples that we are activating or increasing the amount of these nutrients available to the plant. Again, reducing abiotic stresses. The pictures on the right talk a little bit about the nitrogen deficiencies that you see on the left for the control, but with Emergent, because of its proper use of nutrients, we see less of that firing from the bottom part of the plant. So a really neat product. So let's talk a little bit about some of the data. I want to talk about 2019 in corn. We had 4 locations, and I want you to focus on the Quadris and the Pacesetter and Quadris. And so what we're seeing in corn on these 4 locations would be that we saw an increase over just the fungicide by itself. So plant health and additional disease control offered a better return here. In this particular case, when using current corn prices, we're looking at a 5-to-1 ROI. Go ahead and go to 2020. Very similar results in 2020. Again, in this particular case, we used Avaris, which is azoxystrobin and propiconazole combination product that Helena has in their portfolio. We added the Avaris Emergent and Pacesetter to this. And again, I want to show you that we're using the half rate of Pacesetter. If we're looking for and talking to our organic customers and they're looking for disease control and plant health, we would be pointing them towards the 13-ounce rate. Brad will cover that a little bit more later. But by adding we see again a 5-to-1 return on investment. A little drier year, fewer locations. In this particular case, over the Valtima, we saw a 2-to-1 in return over just the fungicide program by itself. So let's go to some pictures. I mentioned that we see a plant health effect with greater chlorophyll levels. And what you're seeing on the left is basically premature senescence. Somebody might say, well, you're causing a delay in maturity. No, we're giving you full maturity. The difference in moisture between the crops on the left and the right is less than 1/10 of a point of moisture. So we don't delay maturity. We're actually giving you full season, full physiological maturity. Next picture. And just to see that chlorophyll difference again through a drone shot, Pacesetter and fungicide versus the fungicide alone. And an interesting one, I'm going to lay this to some of the plant health and stalk strength that we saw. But this was the derecho storm that happened in Iowa in 2020. We had emergent Pacesetter and a fungicide. The drone shows us, and actually when we were walking the field, we saw it too. A little bit of leaning stalks in the emergent Pacesetter fungicide program. Really, the corn was flat in a lot of places in that fungicide alone. Again, we're thickening cell walls, improving some standability. On to the next slide. So we're going to talk about soybeans next. Very similar to what we saw in corn, focusing on the fungicide by itself, and then what we do when we add Pacesetter at the half rate along with the fungicide. This was Quadris again, and again, a 4-to-1 return on investment over just the fungicide by itself. Next slide. 2020, 4 locations. And again, we have this in this particular case, Avaris, emergent, and Pacesetter in the tank mixed together. Again, looking at just Avaris by itself. And we see a 5-to-1 return on investment in this particular case based on current soybean prices. Okay, next one. And then lastly, last year's trials, again, really strong results, again, versus just the Valtima by itself, a 6-to-1 return on investment. So I think that's the indication that we're going to list Kevin's experience. So Kevin, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Awesome. Before we do that, let's just go ahead and we're going to test Kevin's sound, and we'd love to have a little giveaway. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to come onto our webinar. So Brenda, my colleague, I'm going to ask you to go ahead and watch the chat so we can find out who the first person to answer this question is. So we just relocated headquarters to a new location. Can you please let us know what city and state our new headquarters are in, Marrone Bioinnovations? Just go ahead and post it in the chat. And first person will capture, will send you an awesome Pacesetter hat. Kevin, can I hear your
Yes.
audio?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, we're going to need to go a little louder.
All righty. How's this here? Can y'all hear me good?
Better, yes. Okay, let me. All right.
Right.
Kevin, so honored to have you on. I know you're a very busy man.
Yeah,
Take it away.
We are busy, no question about it. It's trying to get planters ready. Got 3 24-row planters trying to get through the shop, and 2 of them's getting complete rebuilds from the toolbar back. So, and obviously with a COVID excuse everyone uses, every part we're needing, we're missing about 25% to complete the project. So we just hope and pray that comes in very quickly, because here we'll start planting soybeans and corn by the end of March. So I'm getting a little bit nervous, I'll have to say. So xtremeag.farm, we're what we do is we just really make a life journal of what we do on our farm and real farming environment. And our goal originally was to have it to pass to the next generation. Document everything. We're always on the cutting edge, trying new techniques, new technologies. Some stuff crazy, some stuff possibly plumb stupid, but we enjoy it. We make a lot of mistakes, and we share it with others. We have a member-based group, and they pay annual subscriptions, and they get full access. And we run across Brad down at Row Crop Exchange last January, and he was bragging on how good a product he had. And you know, there's so many snake oils out there. I heard this and I thought, well, here we go, another one. I said, well, I don't know. So we kind of brushed him off a little bit, but he was very persistent. And so we got researching Marrone Bio and talking to different ones in the vegetable industry. It's used it in the seed industry. And we got one thing in common. They all was very happy with the performances that they got from different products. So we decided maybe Brad was being honest with us. So we give him an opportunity, and it worked great. We've had a good relationship. We've learned a lot, and we'll kind of go through. We used the Pacesetter and this year, and this is my spray guy. He and Marine Bio representative Hal Blackmore went out and doing checks, treated and non-treated areas. We're in a very high disease area here in the River Valley at the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains in North Carolina. We farm about 5,000 acres, do about 1,000 acres of custom work. So we're not a small operation. We have small fields, and we got to have something that works for us, that's dependable. We have to fungicide every acre due to the extreme disease pressure that we have. So we're learning with this, but we used Pacesetter on corn, soybeans, and wheat this year. It's soft red winter wheat. Our wheat is planted in October, and it's harvested in June, and then immediately the soybean planters are behind it, planting soybeans right behind the wheat. Our biggest yield challenges in soybeans is good yields on our double crop acres, which is what we consider that type of technology, harvesting the wheat in July and June and then planting the soybeans directly behind it. And we'll plant a group 4 soybean at that time as well. This is a 118-day corn right here you're looking at. We did run 12 ounces of Pacesetter on this, and we had a control with no Pacesetter at all. We seen on corn, let me look here, that field right there, we was at 4 bushel advantage where we had the Pacesetter. And it was a Yadkin loam soil, so it's kind of a clay loam, and it's in a river bottom. Go to the next slide. So you can see the ear, a little bit of ear girth difference there. Wasn't a big yield difference. I will say that this plot right here was probably just a average looking plot. The timing on this was put on at about R3 to R4. I feel like that's a little bit late on corn. I think we need to be earlier. We're going to play with it more, and when we get over to the wheat yields, when we talk about them, I'll get more in detail on that. So you can go to the next slide. So this is in Gregory, South Dakota. Lee Lubers is one of our owners in Xtreme Ag. I went on his farm personally not long after these pictures was taken by the Marine Bio staff, and I got the opportunity to look at the treated and the neighbor and the untreated, and also just the neighbor's corn in general. 7 inches of rain, I believe, was the total rainfall for the year. 150 to 160 bushel corn. I thought those yields was impressive. Mr. Lee thought they was terrible, but then you looked at the neighbors and it was, I don't know what their yields were, but I can assure you they weren't nowhere near as good as these fields right here. Pretty impressive there. So it's definitely got our attention. You can see the ears there. You can also, he did use Delaro with that. Now myself, we use Veltima is what we ran with ours. You can kind of see the topography that Lee has. It's pretty good sized fields. It's kind of a gentle rolling slope. He's right at the southern border of South Dakota. Really dead central of the state, just right on the state line, actually. Next slide. Okay, Haven. Why did we use Haven? So the Pacesetter and the Haven, we wanted to try that, and you can see the results right here. We didn't see quite as big of yield boost on some of the plots on the Pacesetter as what we did in South Dakota. The yield environment was 200 bushel yield environment. I do believe we should have put it on earlier. After talking with Brad earlier in the week about my observations, And Brad, if you want to chime in on this right here, on this timing on this as well, I think that you was telling me about VT to R1 probably be a better timing for it.
Yes, Lee Lubers put his on right there at that tassel type timing. And you can see that we averaged right there around 10 bushel. Considering the 7 inches of rain they had and the severe drought, that really got his attention. And so I think you're right, Kevin. I'd like to see us go on a little earlier on corn, for sure.
Yeah, you really need to know your growth stages on these crops. And like I say, this was a whole new ordeal for us this year with this type of product. We use many others, but Brad has got some really good data now that you got what, 3 years of data sets, pretty solid data sets now. Next slide, please. Soybeans, we actually seen a more consistent response on that. Chad Henderson, my co-part in Alabama, he's in northern Alabama in the red clay soils. And then in the Delta, we got Arkansas. We got Matt Miles there in McGee, Arkansas. That's in the southeast corner in the Delta. It's just flat, very low CEC soils, probably about a 1% organic material, but he grows some phenomenal soybean yields. He's seen a 1/2 bushel increase here. The timing when we put the Pacesetter out was with the fungicide at a R3 application. Again, I feel like we need to be a little bit earlier. I will say the Pacesetter seemed to have bigger yield bumps on the grass crops versus the legumes just across the board. And I think we just got to play and get that proper timing. We did use Revitech fungicide in combination with it. I'm not so sure it wouldn't be better off doing a standalone earlier and then come back maybe with our fungicide later just to see. I'd like to try that and see what kind of results we get. But 7 bushels I just sold soybeans yesterday. I was still holding about 100,000 bushels of last year's crop. Sold 50,000 of them at $17. So 7 bushels and $17. Well, I probably shouldn't have said that because Brad may want to increase the price of Pacesetter if he sees that kind of return. So don't want that. So okay, this is interesting right here. Why do we have a 7.6 bushel and then a 27 bushel? So the madness behind the math here, the 7.6 bushel was let me pull my chart right here. So that was on a sandy clay loam soil, a Pacesetter sandy clay loam, and that was put on at 40% flowering. So we have a lot of scab issues, septoria, and we have to grow milling quality wheat. It's got to be real good quality wheat. So we're really looking at that time of bloom to get our Maravis Top, or Maravis Ace, out there fungicide, which is what we chose to use. But we put the Pacesetter on with that. And at the 40% flowering, we just didn't see, 7.6 bushels, that's pretty good. But then we went and put it on a different soil type that was on a Cecil sandy clay loam. And on that Cecil sandy clay loam soil, it's the same variety of wheat. It's about 20 miles from each other. We split our wheat up just due to frost. That way we don't put all our eggs in one basket. And this wheat was at 20% flowering. And the reason it was a little bit behind on flowering than the other was we was able to get an early application of nitrogen in a December, January top dress. And we got rained out and we got delayed about 2 weeks to 3 weeks before we could put it on the other farm. And it actually slowed one matured a little bit later due to that, which turned out to be good. So we put this Pacesetter on and we was at 20% flowering, and it was just so obvious in the field. You could see exactly the treated and untreated areas. And so we pulled the first one, and I was running the combine, and I was kind of shocked at the yields I seen. So I said, well, it'll change. So we kept going across the field, and then I pulled over into a control area that did not have none. Yield dropped back down. We were still cutting 100 bushel wheat, which is really good wheat. But it was very common on about a 4-acre area of that field this plot was over, we treated, I think, 25 acres in the middle of the field. So had a pretty good 50 acre, about a 70 acre field total acres. So we had a lot of treated and untreated in it. That really brings out the real truth, whether it performs or not on a real farm environment. So these are not strip plots that we're looking at. These are several acres in these plots. And at times, there's probably about 4.5 to 5 acres in that field that was consistently 150 to 160 bushel wheat. Now, that was shocking to see that kind of yield, and we've seen that kind of 130, 140 bushel yield. We've seen that on wheat at times. It's not that uncommon, but then it's not common enough either. We typically hold farm averages in the 80s to 90s. That's kind of what you expect to be at on our soft red winter wheat. Now, the trump card here, the thing that throwed me off was the quality was actually about a pound less of test weight on my treated area of Pacesetter versus my untreated. And what we're thinking, and I brought an agronomist in that is a really good chemist guy that I rely on, has nothing to do with Marine Bio or any other company. It's totally independent. And we've talked about this for several months. And he told me, he said, Kevin, I really think that your Maravus Ace fungicide in combination with your Pacesetter, and you ran a full rate of both products. He said, I think we got too much fungicide there. He said, I believe if you back that fungicide down, leave the Pacesetter at the rate it's at, he said, I think you'll see that twist and get your test weight back up. Get that 1 point of test weight back. And so that's a pretty cool deal, good information to try to learn. And so we're going to do that this year. We're going to adjust that fungicide. Now that I know the Pacesetter is a positive product and it absolutely works, I'm going to lower that fungicide amount that I put in there and see what kind of results we get then. And Brad, do you want to comment on that? Because I asked you about that theory and you actually said y'all had noticed that too.
Well, I think you may be onto something. I wish we had a little more data to prove it out. And those are some things that Brian and I and yourself will work on here in 2022. So I'll give you a lot of credit. This isn't the first thing that you have taught me about our own products throughout the season. You really vet these things out, and you know, it really shows the amount of detail that you're putting into your operation. And I've kind of seen that throughout the whole Xtreme Ag group. They're very good at analyzing new products.
Well, one thing is we got a good team of people behind us. I'm not very smart, so I got to have a lot of people in my corner to make me look like I know what I'm talking about. And I might even have a cheat sheet over here to my left a little bit too to help me. Excuse me. So why did we choose to have Haven of all products in our corn? When I called Brad and I talked to him about Haven, he said, well, you know, we normally use that in vegetables, grapes and vineyards. Said, we really don't have that position to go towards corn. Well, when Lee and I looked at the ingredients and looked at the performances and the target areas that there's at, we love to surround ourselves with good produce people, because if that produce is not good and pretty, they can't sell it. So they got to grow a healthy crop. And if they're willing to put money in it to make a healthier crop, there's a good chance that it'll correlate into the row crop side as well. You just got to make it economical. So heat stress is something that we face here in the South, and Lee faces there in South Dakota. We kind of face it there, you know, everywhere really faces it, but when you get down here, you can literally lose an entire corn crop during pollination. And so been working with a lot of products to try to lower that canopy temperature and let it manage the heat a little better and that tough timing, because you get one shot with a corn crop crop. If it doesn't pollinate, it's just, I tell you, we usually go, my wife has an annual beach trip every year. She likes to go right after we get done harvesting wheat, and I just soon stay home in the fields and to go sit on a hot beach. I'll get an air condition. I get a moon tan or something. I don't want no suntan. But I have left with the prettiest corn crop I've ever had and come back without a crop. That's no fun. So we was reading about this, and I said, well, I got the perfect field in mind. We got 150 acre bottom right behind my office right here at the farm, and you can kind of see out the back window on the camera there, the sun shining in. But I can look over, and in the center of this bottom, we had a bad flood, and it gutted a place out, and we got sand that's about 15 foot deep, just pure sand. And the soil type is it's just a Dan River Comus sand type soil. It's very sandy. And this year was the year it was to get corn on it. We rotate corn and soybeans on the lowland. And so I talked with Brad, and I said, I want to try this Haven product and see what it'll do. So he told me a little more about it. So we was coming up on some 90+ degree temperature days. It was going to be in the mid 90s. Luckily, they was forecasting nighttime temps in the mid to high 70s. You can usually survive that. When you get them nighttime temps in the 80s, it's really tough on that corn. So rather than putting it on, our original plan was put it on at VT right before tassel. And just as the tassels was beginning to emerge, have it in the plant. We chose to hold up because we had perfect weather then. So the weather forecast was showing this hot, dry spell coming on. And we put it on the field, and I will tell you, some of those areas out in the field where the sand was so deep, it nearly burnt the corn plumb up. But you kind of expect that. But the takeaway here was we did 2 replications across this about 80 acres. And the rate on that Haven that we chose to run was 19 ounces per acre. And we picked 200 bushel corn off there. We was at 199.48 and 190.87 in the control. So 8.6 bushels. And then on the other side of the creek in a similar soil type, we was at 8.3 bushels. That was 2 different varieties of corn that we done that on. And that was pretty impressive what we done right there. So I want to learn a little more about this product. I think I have no clue what the price model is on it. That's something Brad and the guy will have to talk to you guys about. But I just feel like it's got some opportunity in the corn, in my opinion. Brad, what's your thoughts on this?
Well, we're just excited about Haven, and you're the one that really pointed us in that direction, telling us that you wanted to lower that canopy temperature and how important that was. So we're going to be doing a lot more work this year. Brian Mueller is definitely going to have trials at different titrations. And we think that we can be at a little lower use rate than that 19 ounces you were using. That was about a 1% volume over volume. And if we can get that down to 0.75 volume per volume, or even a 0.6, the cost per acre and the return on investment would just be phenomenal. So I went ahead and penciled it out. The 3-to-1 we're showing on the screen there was based on the highest rate, and the price would be a little higher. So we got a lot to learn here, and appreciate you showing what we can do here on both corn and soybeans. And so we'll definitely be doing a lot more work, and we'll get Xtreme Ag involved in that in different geographies this year.
Yeah. So on the soybeans, if you look at the slide, the left side, the 7 bushel increase, that was on full season soybeans. And that was pretty good numbers right there. But then on the right side, the 4.3 bushels, that was actually in a double crop environment. So if you can average 50 bushels on your double crop soybeans, and these are the ones I told you about earlier, that's planted behind wheat. And so you're already on the backside of summer solstice. So you're not going to be in the big yield environment just because you're planting so late. But with your wheat yield and then your soybean yield, hopefully you'll net some money. Some years we do, some years we don't. But 4.3 bushels. And to improve my farm average, I like to look at my worst yielding properties, my acres that's doing the worst yield or whatever's my most obvious hurdle, and I try to fix it. If I've got a field that's making exceptional yields, I'm going to leave it alone. Yeah, I'd like to see it get better, but my easiest ROI is going to be going after my weaker acres. And so we really focused on these double crops. To pick up 4 bushels on a double crop environment is huge. Now, with that being said, I hope that Brad and them don't say, well, we're going to base the cost off $17 beans or something like that and improve the share to the stockholders. But, you know, but got to throw that in there to try to get the greedy part to get him to price it cheap for me. But, all right. Well, Brad, I appreciate everything. If you guys have any questions about how we've used these products, please throw a chat up. We'll be glad to answer that question. And, you know, it was all put out with a 120-foot boom with either a Haggy or a New Holland sprayer. We had 1,200-gallon tanks on those machines, so pretty good size. Soybeans were in 20-inch rows. Wheat was actually broadcast around. So if you have any questions, just let us know.
Well, thanks a lot, Kevin. It's a joy to work with you and the Xtreme Ag Group. I've learned a lot working with you guys. You certainly vet products in a very unique way that, you know, really gets down to, you know, what will give you the return on investment. And Kevin just got back from the National Farm Machinery Show. You'll see people from the Xtreme Ag Group down at Commodity Classic, places like, you know, Ag PhD up in with Hefty, up in South Dakota, various speaking engagements throughout the year. And these guys are really, you know, good at what they do. And when they tell you something, you can take it to the bank. So thanks a lot, Kevin. I do appreciate it.
Awesome.
Yes, sir.
Just
thank you.
We're going to take one moment here. I'd love to just stop and see if anybody has any questions for Kevin. I just posted in the chat. Just give it a, here we go. Brock is asking Pacesetter rate per acre on soybeans. I think we're just about to go into that, right, Brad?
Yes.
Yep.
Now on my farm, I use 12 ounces on everything I try to Pacesetter. Of the corn, soybeans, and wheat, I use 12 ounces. On soybeans, we run carrier water of 15 gallons an acre. And then we had a Revitec fungicide in there also. And I believe, if I remember right, it was at about a 10-ounce rate. It was a maximum rate on the label. We did run a sugar product as we use on every foliar pass that we do in the field. It's a molasses-based product that we've used for years. And we had a non-ionic surfactant in there as well. And we're actually playing with that a little bit. We are seeing some different surfactants that's helping penetrate and getting these products into the leaves a lot better where the plants can metabolize them. So we're seeing a little bit of everything.
Awesome. There's another question here. Are all the products mentioned OMRI certified or just Pacesetter? Brian, Brad, I think you both can confirm that. Otherwise, I'm happy to.
Yes, Pacesetter is definitely OMRI certified. Brian, I'll let you take it from there.
Sure. Currently, the immersion that we mentioned is not organic. We are working on a version that will be available in the, I think in about 2 years. We think we can have that done. And Haven is not at this point, and still struggling to see if there's a way that we can make that in a way that would pass the certifiers, but it is not.
Awesome. Any other questions for Kevin? Otherwise, we'll have another Q&A at the end. I just always like to pause here, especially after a guest speaker. We'll keep going in the interest of time. Brad, go ahead.
All right. I appreciate everything, Kevin, and we'll go ahead and talk more about the art of use now, how we position our product. And one of the things that we see with Pacesetter, it's a way to supercharge your current fungicide program. Brian talked about some disease control earlier and plant health benefits, and we certainly, play a role in both of those areas. And the bottom line is, you've got to add more yield. And we've got some really strong return on investments. I'm going to show a little bit of yield data here on grower trials across the Midwest here towards the end. And we bring another mode of action. This is a new mode of action that has not been seen in the fungicide products that are currently available. And if you could go to the next slide, we're in that group P5, and Brian already told you about the mode of action. And, this is not a product that has been overused. Our resistance potential is very, very low. The other three groups, group 7, 11, and 3, those products have been used for a number of years. The SDHI products, or several new ones, are coming in to play here this past season. And so the unique thing here is you can put Pacesetter with a different mode of action and bolt it on to products in these other groups. And hopefully we will be able to extend the life of all these products by doing so, and then also improving yield and disease control as well. Next slide. Some of the diseases that you will see on our 2EE, northern leaf blight, gray leaf spot in corn. In soybeans, we can definitely give some help on Cercospora, frog eye, and brown spot. And then when we get into cereal grains, powdery mildew, and septoria leaf spot and speckled leaf spot, blotch, and then when you get into bacterial diseases in dry beans, Pacesetter has really shown a really nice fit in that market as well. And we'll go ahead and go to the next slide. In terms of the rates used, you heard Kevin say he was using that 12, 13 ounce, more that full type rate. That's the rate that we use when the product stands alone, or it's in a 2-pass program in conventional crops. You could put the full rate of Pacesetter out early and then follow it with your standard fungicide program. For OMRI certified organic crops where you don't have other options, Pacesetter has really found a home there, and we use that full 13 ounce rate on organic row crops. When you put us with a tank mix, we use more of that 6.5 ounce rate a lot of times. And in 2-pass programs, some people will follow a 6.5 ounce rate with each of their fungicide passes, and they're just bolting Pacesetter on. In terms of timing on corn, I agreed with comments that Kevin made earlier about getting it on a little earlier. We like that VT plus or minus 10 days if you're going to do a 1-pass program. Now, there's a lot of growers that are now using 2-pass programs. I believe, that's what Kevin was using on a lot of his acres. And if we went a little earlier, say a V10 on corn, and then followed it with an R1, R2 with the late disease, that we saw coming up into the Midwest, things like tar spot and rust showing up a little later. might give us a little more protection, against those type of diseases. And we're not claiming tar spot with Pacesetter, but we've seen healthier plants not allowing as much of the bacteria and disease to get into the plant, kind of like what Brian was talking about early. We're a 12% extract. Like we said, we supercharge a fungicide program with a lot more plant health, and we can show that over and over again. It's a real showy product. You can see the differences throughout the season and all the way to harvest. We've already talked about the yields, but on corn, 6 to 10 bushel has been our averages the last 2 seasons, 3 to 6 on soybeans. Sometimes you're higher, sometimes you're lower, but those are just kind of some averages. In terms of a farm gate price, we don't tell our customers what to sell the products at. Generally, at that 6.5 ounce rate, it's going to be $5 to $6, and you're going to be $10+ for the full rate of 13 ounces. We have very simple distribution. We work directly with ag retail organizations. So next slide. We've got about 80 trials that went out, both aerial applications, ground applications, and so I'd like to share some pictures that we've seen. You'll always find bigger ear size, more consistent ear size. When you break the ears in half, you'll see that the kernels are deeper. There'll be less tip back, and from the heat stress that you get after that pollination timing. And next slide. On the right, those are Pacesetter fungicide, and then you've got fungicide only on the left. And it's fun to do this. I've got a background in genetics as well, working with some of the Monsanto seed companies and also DuPont. So that's one of the first things we do going into harvest is break ears and see what we've got. A lot healthier pith. I know you don't take cobs to the elevator, but a lot of times you'll see a dime on the fungicide and a nickel on the pith for the Pacesetter and the fungicide. Next slide. Again, some more options. These were from last year in Indiana. And when you get a lot of stress, the picture on the right, you can just see a lot less tip back. And every one of those kernels that we lose, obviously they all add up. And if we can hold on to 4 or 5 more of those kernels on every row, then that's where this yield difference is really coming from. On soybeans, it's more about holding the pods. Rode in the combine here in southern Indiana with Kevin Cow, and this was on the day of harvest at the end of September. And one of the things we noticed with Pacesetter, and we had a merge-in with his fungicide program, which I believe was Veltima in this case, the ears were upright where we put that combination together, and you could see a lot more plant health. And then we had more ears that had already dropped with just the fungicide only. Next slide. And there's what the ear size looked like. In this case, it was about a 4 bushel difference, and he's another guy that really searches after and pushes the limits for high yield. So this was about 300 bushel corn. And there's the difference in the ears on the right versus the left. And in Remington, Indiana, I put out several arable units. And that's what that picture is on the right. It looks like we're looking at a solar panel here. The actual unit is above that. But anyway, where we saw the Pacesetter with the fungicide program, next slide, we saw differences in chlorophyll. So I put this arable unit out there at the end of August and went all the way up just prior to harvest. And because that's when we really wanted to show what kind of plant health we were holding on late in the season. So if you look at those numbers for each both NDVI and chlorophyll production, they are higher. So it's just another way to prove that, with some technology, that Pacesetter is doing all the things that Brian talked about earlier in the presentation. Next slide. And here's what the actual ears looked like. You can see a lot deeper kernel depth. And this was, I believe this picture was taken in August. And then if you go to the next slide, there's what it looked like a little closer on the right to harvest. Here's another location in northern Indiana. Sometimes you can see some pretty big differences in ear size. And here's an organic field in northeast Indiana that got hit by tar spot pretty bad. It came in late, and you can see that Pacesetter was the only thing they used on that operation, and because it's the only option that's really labeled, that's OMRI certified, and that's basically untreated on the left, and you can see the difference in ear size. The next slide will show you then that there was tar spot present, that we documented that, and then the last slide will show you the differences in the kernel depth. So I like to spend time out in the field and kicking the tires and seeing how our products perform, and I've been very, very impressed with what I've seen. This has been 2 seasons now, and we're now actively selling Pacesetter. The first season, all I did was evaluate the product. Here last year, this was after detasseling a field that was done in near Constantine, Michigan, and you can just see that fungicide only and the recovery that we saw with adding Pacesetter and Emergen was that much better. So if you can have a bigger solar panel for that corn, and there's a 1/2 inch wider leaf, and more of that energy can get into the grain, then that's really where the power comes from to have those deeper kernels that we've showed you in these pictures. Next slide. Soybeans, we just want to hold on to more pods and have a little more plant health. Next picture. You'll see that you don't drop as many leaves, you don't drop as many pods, and then that's where the yield comes from. So let's go to the next slide. Cotton, I know we've got some people on the call that are growing some cotton, and this picture I took last year in the Boot Heel of Missouri, and I took 3 plants, let the grower go out and sample out of the treated and the untreated, and we had more first and second position bowls. So if we can hold on to more of those, and if the bowls are bigger and you bring that quality, then that's where the yield comes from. Next slide. Just some real quick data. Organic corn 8.2. Next slide. Organic soybeans. Beck's, through their PFR program on both corn and soybeans, does replicated trials, and those were done in 4 states. Central Valley Ag's out in Nebraska. Next slide. Here's commercial conventional corn, 8.7 bushel average on corn with Pacesetter and Emergen versus a fungicide alone. And then on soybeans, Angela, next slide, then we averaged about 6 bushel this year, a little more than last year overall. We had a lot of disease pressure. We had a lot of high humidity in late June and July. I think it brought on a little more disease, and and then in some areas we had a lot of heat and drought after all that early rain. Next slide. So here's our sales team. I'm in the Midwest. We got Amelia out in the Pacific Northwest, Brian Guest in the Southwest, and then Hal Blackmore is in North Carolina, and he goes all the way down into Georgia. We just hired a rep down in Florida for part of the southern part of the Mid-South, and then Steve Bogash in the Northeast, John Driver up in Michigan, Wisconsin, and Minnesota. So that's our team. If you have any questions, feel free to take a picture of that and give us a ring. We'd love to talk to you. That's all I had.
Now just to finish this out, and I'd like to move as quickly as I can because I know we're running just slightly long, but we do have some other things at Marrone that I think you'll be interested in. And I'm going to talk first really to the organic growers about Magistine, is our insecticide bio-nematicide. And this is a product that is based on Burkholderia bacteria. And we found that certain components within it are insecticidal and nematicidal. When it is just a product that the bacteria is heat treated in Magistine in order to eliminate it, and we just sell a stable broth is what or media fermentation. And what we found is that if we don't heat treat it, we remove the bacteria in another way, that we actually increase the insecticidal and nematicidal activity. So in about 18 months from now, we're going to be bringing them into the marketplace, the newest formulation. Currently, it's we just refer to it as MBI 306. But we will see a magnitude improvement over what we see, and the beauty of this one, our cost of goods is equivalent. So a tenfold increase in active ingredient, and at roughly the same cost. Currently, the Magistine, we're using that for our organic customers who are looking for nematode control of corn rootworm, also wireworms and grubs. So just wanted to have a little bit of data for you to look at. Angela, if you wouldn't mind. This is plant stands across 6 studies that we did in 2020. And looking at Magistine is the purple bar compared to the one on the left, which is untreated. We see an improvement in stand. Again, that may be due to seed corn maggot or grub feeding or wireworm feeding. And then the next bar over to the right is M306. And again, an improvement in stand, and we compare ourselves to bifenthrin and counter on the far right-hand side. So those are good products, and we're equal to their abilities. This is an organic product that can be used on that organic farm or conventional acres. So again, looking at the rootworm ratings, the 0 to 3 scale that is used, developed in Iowa, Magistine performed very well compared to the Czech. 306, actually a little better, and very similar to a high rate of capture LFR as the standard. So again, performing very well. Price-wise, we think the 306 could be priced very similar to what the standard currently is. Last slide, and this is yield, and that's what it comes down to. We see a really nice yield increase with the Magistine, and an actual improvement with 306, even numerically better than the counter capture result for yield. So this is one that we're going to be very excited about bringing to our organic customers now, and to conventional customers in about 18 to 24 months. Next slide, please. Thank you. Kevin mentioned Haven, and this is a product that we use for stress management. We use it on quite a few different crops, nuts and grapes being probably our biggest markets right now. Sunscreen, but also helps manage temperature fluctuations and water movement within the plant. Next slide. So what's normally happening as far as stress, Angela, just go ahead and pound them on through. We see the plant goes into a distress situation, shuts down, and is less productive. But when we're using Haven, next slide, we're getting some improvement of blocking UVB rays, and the solution from the soil, it'll move more moisture, moisture and nutrients into the plant. And then we see measuring the phloem output, that we actually see more photosynthate going down into the roots and into the leaves and other parts of the plant, into yield. So this is something that we're going to be exploring. We have some data that came out of our partners in Europe using this product, so they're actually ahead of us a little bit. That's something we'll be exploring a lot more this year. And lastly, I'm going to talk about Stargus as a Bacillus nakamurae strain F727, and where we're fitting this into the marketplace for fungicide control of white mold, particularly in soybeans and dry beans. A very effective product. I've been very impressed with the results. Typically, we look for 2 applications, but at some point, if you're interested in white mold protection and using Stargus, we can actually look at possibly a 2-pass program with Pacesetter and Stargus. So I think that is, last slide. I just wanted, especially organic folks will want to know that we have 3 herbicides in development currently. Those are probably 3 to 5 years out, but that's a market that is definitely in need. The first one, the 005, will be a pre-emerge product in corn and soybeans. Very exciting with small seeded broadleaf and some grass control. The second one, we will have both a conventional and organic offering that is very good on the pigweed family in particular. So it's an in-crop application that will control things like Palmer amaranth, tall water hemp, and redwood pigweed. The last one, the 011, is more of a burn down, but broadleaves and grasses as well. So similar to what you might see with gramoxone. So that is what I have for you. Again, thank you for your attention. Angela, I'll turn it over to you to wrap up.
Awesome, Brian. Thank you so much. Just a reminder here, if you guys need somebody to chat with, a lot of these representatives here are crop advisors or consultants, pesticide consultants, pest consultants, and they have a wide range of experience in biologicals. Brad specifically obviously has a ton of experience in both row crops and using conventional and biological products. So take a screenshot if you'd like. Otherwise, when you go to our website, just look to the upper right-hand corner where you can contact the sales team. You can see everyone's picture, their contact information there as well. With that, I posted in chat a few minutes ago. I'm not seeing any questions, but please, if you have any questions, we're happy to hang out for a few minutes and make sure your questions or concerns are answered. And for any of those that are still on the line, just would love to hear some feedback. Was this helpful to you? Is this intriguing? Awesome. Once again, just want to say thank you so much to Kevin Matthews for being on today. Really appreciate your candid feedback and experience with the product. I know that always goes a long way. Otherwise, I'm not seeing any questions. So I hope the information was helpful to you. Again, we're here to be a resource for you on anything related to biologicals and incorporating biologicals into both organic and conventional farming operations. Brad is on hand and happy to answer any questions after this webinar. Just give him a call or send him an email. And we will be sending out a recording of this webinar as well as the presentation, hopefully within the next 24 hours. So you can look for that. If you don't see it, you can always reference our website. We have a webinar recording section, or go to YouTube. With that, thank you everyone for spending a little time with us today. And we hope to see you out in the field someday at a trade show or perhaps on another webinar. Have a beautiful day. Bye, everyone.